19 Keys, and this is High-Level Conversation. Library.
How do we reconcile the ideas, right? Because I hear a lot of conversation about people shifting to the red, right? And far left.
Right.
And there was this study that was done by Dr. Zach. He's a neuroeconomist about the effects of political affiliation and testosterone. So it was a 2011 study, and I believe it was at Santa Clara University. And basically, he did a baseline testing the hormones of these participants where they affiliated themselves as strong affiliation to Democrats, strong affiliation to Republicans. Now, what they would do is weekly, they would give them testosterone shots, right? So they would get their baseline, whether they're 600 points, and as it grows, they would ask them these questions about candidates and their political affiliation.
Interesting.
Now, what they found out is that after the testosterone, there was an 11% decrease in those who had weak affiliation towards Democrat, but there was a 45% increase of people towards the red shift, right? Towards Republican ideology. And also those who had strong affiliation, right, to Democrats, or those who had strong affiliation to Republican, there was no change. So if you have this strong ideology towards any parties or candidate, regardless of your hormonal balance, it has no change. But if you have weak, then you can be shifted to the left or right depending on your hormones, right? Testosterone specifically. And one of the things that they had looked at was the ideas towards wealth distribution, right? And the policies around that. And it was stated that those who had an increase of testosterone started to favor the red, right? Towards ideas of gaining wealth through one's own merit, right? And that pursuit of challenge of going and get it yourself, right? Versus the idea of the caregiver, right? Which is the state, or socialism, which is what I want to get into, or the idea of how people perceive socialism.
Right.
So coming into that thinking of this society has a 50-year drop in testosterone, I believe that the toxicity that exists around the thinking of the masculine, right, is what has been poisoned, because there are not any virtuous characters that is portrayed in the media that gives the young boy or young woman a good attitude and a disposition towards the masculine. And so you have this, what they call a manosphere, right, that is saying that, hey, be a man, right? And those ideas are shifted on the right. The left doesn't really push that idea because they're pushing feminism or the women's movement, right, and progressiveness. So this is where you see the younger generation are not going to vote the way people think they're going to vote, because their ideas, as we talk about double consciousness, this generation has its own double consciousness, and that's towards masculine and feminine, right? As I kind of laid out a lot there for you.
Oh, yeah, you got a lot.
Throw it.
Yeah, but I appreciate you reflecting on a number of these figures that I really don't know about.
Yes, sir.
I've never heard that study.
Yes, sir.
So you really
I can send it to you.
No, absolutely. You're exposing me to this and educating me on so many different ways. But I would look at it first in this way, which is based on my own personal experience. That, see, I discovered what it meant to be a man by looking at my father, Clifton West.
Observation.
The third. Absolutely. And he had a vulnerability, a willingness for intimacy. He had a toughness, and he'd throw down in a minute. Now,
Yes,
he
sir.
wasn't Martin Luther King Jr. pacifist kind of brother, though.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He was a Christian, but he wasn't a pacifist.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? And I learned it from my grandfather, who, when my mother's mother died on the chair, right on the steps of a white hospital that wouldn't admit her. This was in Crawley, Louisiana, where she was born. Her father, my grandfather, was head of the deacon board, came out with his shotgun. So he could have been part of the deacons with guns, and they had to run him out of the city. That's how my mother ended up growing up in Orange, Texas, rather than Louisiana. And he would always tell me and my brother Cliff and Cynthia and Cheryl these stories, right? So I'm just sitting there learning like, wow, really to be a man is to be somebody who got the courage to be willing to throw down for something bigger than them. But then also to be vulnerable enough and have a sense of intimacy enough for that Socratic dimension, which is that self-criticism. It's the only way you grow, develop, and mature. And then when I read about the great figures of the past, from Frederick Douglass to Harriet Tubman, both simultaneously, man and woman, both of them, courageous, visionary, sacrificial, serving, the least of these, coming out of 25th chapter of Matthew. I said, I see. To be a man is to be willing to learn from a variety of others, women and other folk, but still acknowledge I've got something to do in light of what gifts I have and how do I cultivate those gifts. And then I learned it too, in the music. I have to be very honest about that. Delphonics and dramatics and Curtis Mayfield, especially, and Gil Scott-Heron and others, provided real examples for me of how you be a black man with self-respect and with a love for the people. The Panther Party was very influential for me. That's my generation.
Yes,
you
sir.
see what I mean?
Yes, sir.
With Huey and the others. Oh, Lord have mercy. I saw those brothers march into my hometown in October 1966 with their guns.
Yeah.
And everybody going crazy. And Reagan don't know what to do. I said, dang, I got to find out what went into the making of these kind of brothers. Because it wasn't a question of ideology and politics.
Yeah.
It was a question of their sense of standing up for something they believed in, and they did it with style. They did it with style. Same was true of the Nation of Islam. They come into the community with those bow ties and sharp,
Yes,
the
sir.
green pies and
Yes,
selling
sir.
the newspaper. Yeah, I remember just, coming out of the club on Saturday night after slow dancing under the purple light. But I said, hey, these brothers, they got something that I need to learn from. Now, we struggled over I've had some wonderful conversations really with Ms. Louis Farrakhan on struggling over issues of patriarchy and other issues. But it was always an element of my own openness to learn, just like he was always open to learn. And we became brothers even as we agreed to disagree. And most importantly, that love is always deeper than any disagreement.
Yes, sir.
And that's crucial. The same would have been true with Ronald Elijah Muhammad if I had a chance to meet him.
Did you ever get to see him in person? Not to cut your wisdom.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
Yes, sir.
No, I never saw him. I never saw him in person. Not at all. I was talking to the Honorable Silas Muhammad, who right here in Los Angeles, he met the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He was 18 years old. And he said, I never felt so much love coming from a human heart as when I met the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That's what Silas said. I'm just sitting there listening. Me and Brother Malik, Zulu Shabazz, we just sitting there listening to him, you see. And you see, most of the world doesn't see that. They don't hear that because they got all the misconceptions and the lies about the brother and so forth. And it's not, again, you got to agree with everything. Now, first, what was the initial impression of all of this love flowing from him to this young brother, 17 years old? James Baldwin said the same thing when he met the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Remember in Fire Next Time?
Yes, sir.
He says, he had this unique kind of smile. And then he adds, I wonder what it would sound like if he could sing the blues. He said, oh, Lord have mercy. Probably would have been a soft version of Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf. But it would have been softer because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had a gentleness
Yes, sir.
about him, just from what I can see. You know what I mean? And it was different than the gentleness of some of the other disciples that he had, because he had his own
Yes, sir.
unique temperament and quality. And of course, as a messenger, he had a special status within the context of the nation. But I'm saying all of this to say that all of these elements come into the making of my conception of what it is to be a man. And the common denominator of it is a radical freedom in love, a radical love and freedom, a love of the people, that's seeking the truth and seeking justice in order to empower the people, but also a sense of willingness to grow, of self-criticism, so that you recognize you always can learn from others all the time till the day you die.
This damn product right here got too much stuff in it. It got black seed oil, got cannabinoids, it got lion's mane, and it's 1,000 milligrams, right? It's an ounce of black seed oil, got MCT oil, 1 ounce, 0.5 grams of lion's mane powder. I think that's too much. This right here have your brain super focused and charged all damn day. I took this and I was working from the beginning of the day literally to midnight. Now I got a lot of stuff done, but I shouldn't have been that charged up. I don't think that the products should work that well. So I don't think that you should take this if you don't want to get a lot of stuff done throughout the whole day, because everything in here is amazing for you, but I think it's too much ingredients. I feel like you're supposed to take that kind of stuff where it give you a little charge and it had you smooth throughout the day, but not like where you just going and going and going and going. I guess the good part about it is everything is natural and everything is good for you, and it's probably the best thing you can put in your system. But beyond that, unless you got a lot of work to get done throughout that day and you want your mind to be relaxed and you just going supercharged all day long, don't take Supermind. That's my suggestion. Now I want to live in my baseline. I want to be in a high level club.
Are we low level or high level?